So I'm delighted to welcome today Alan Martin to my Winning Through Group interview session and YouTube channel. I'm going to let Alan introduce himself, but there's a lot of interesting synergies which I know we're going to explore. But the theme of today's interview is all around how COVID has changed the face of business relationships. And we'll be looking at different aspects of that. So, Alan, would you like to just say a few words about your background and what you're doing nowadays?
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me, Steve, onto your channel today. I'm very humbled. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Alan Martin. I am passionate now, and I always have been, of helping people to become the best versions of themselves that they can be. And I've been doing that with my work and anything I'm doing really in my life throughout. It was a realization that hit me a while ago. So I was an investment banker for actually over 30 years. I was 25 years with HSBC in various different roles in Treasury. And in the last 9 years I was there, I moved into learning and development. And when I moved into learning and development, my passion for training, for helping people, for coaching really revealed itself to me. And that was very interesting. So when I left the investment banking world about 4 or 5 years ago, I'm now a coach, an executive coach, a life coach, and I also help people in group sessions with regard to communication and really, as I said at the beginning, helping people to find any of the resources that we've all got that maybe for whatever reason might be hidden. And I help people reveal those, because we've all got the resources we need to be okay. Often, especially where we are at the moment with the pandemic, is that often there's a lot of fog and there's a lot of mist and there's lots of noise getting in the way. So we start to believe that maybe we haven't got the resources we need. Actually, the majority of us, except in exceptional circumstances, have. And I'm sure the work that you do and the work that I do help people reveal their truth and their wisdom deep beneath them. On a personal level, I'm married to Claire. I've been married 26 years, and I have 3 beautiful sons, Jack, he's 24, and Sam and Louis, who are twins, who are 20. So very blessed man indeed. And thank you very much for inviting me onto your channel today.
Oh, thank you. I'm really intrigued by where this is going to go, because as we discussed prior to this, it's totally unscripted. We've got a theme and we got an idea what we want to talk about, but as with all these interviews, you never know where it's going to go. So I think a good start point, Alan, is to talk about how we came to meet online, which sounds really dodgy, doesn't it? But it was, to my knowledge, it was during the first lockdown of the pandemic, or certainly the first lockdown in the UK. And I suddenly started to notice this guy who was putting out what he called daily musings. Now, that in itself was intriguing to me, and I'm a very curious person. And I think in that something else in this pandemic, in this COVID era, that curiosity, I think, is something that has really risen to the surface. But you're probably better positioned to talk about that than me. So tell me how your daily musings came about, Alan. What's inspired it?
Yeah, what's really incredibly fascinating is I only actually used that word once or twice. And so what's really interesting for me is that you happen to notice that word on the few times that I used it. So the history of it was, I've always loved writing, and I've always loved, I suppose, performing. And all of a sudden, these platforms have arisen that allows us all to communicate with so many people that was never really available before. So I started off writing pieces. So I created the platform 1 minute of wisdom, one quote of wisdom, one picture of wisdom, one thought of wisdom. And I've been running with that for the last 2 or 3 years. And it's very interesting. So I started off writing, and then I resisted doing video. And I don't know why. There were a couple of voices in my head, one of go and one of stop. And something was stopping me. I don't know what it was. And then it was a fear of something. And then it was about 18 months ago, to maybe a little bit longer, I thought, well, you know what, I'm going to do my first video about fear, because that was the thing that was actually stopping me. So I did this video. It was 1 minute, and it was actually the wrong way around. It was vertical and not horizontal. And that was the only one I ever did that was vertical. And it was all about everything we ever want is on the other side of fear. So, you know, fear, false evidence appearing real, and forget everything and run, face everything and rise. And I had this video of everything you ever wanted was on the other side of fear. And I did this video. And whereas before I was getting maybe, I don't know, 1,000 people, all of a sudden this thing just exploded, and it was the most amazing feeling. So I started doing videos, and I've done about 80 now, and I've got a YouTube channel with all my videos on. And it's a beautiful thing, because now I get lots of people DMing me, will you actually speak about this subject? Will you speak about this subject? And so a lot of the things that I now write about daily are things that people have asked me to do. So I'm currently looking again at Jung's mirror and shadow, because I was actually doing some coaching a couple of weeks ago, and the person mentioned to me that it was a subject that they loved and they discussed it with other people. So I thought I'd run that again. So for me, LinkedIn especially, and I use lots of different social medias, is an amazing way to communicate with lots of different people. And I've now created, I'll call it a community. And everyone now posts and comments, and everyone comments on other people's comments. And we've created this global community. And the thing that is the most beautiful about it is 99.999% of what people write is positive and helpful. I can only probably count on one hand in 18 months the number of things that people might have written that were the other way. And I think that if you look at social media as a whole, there's a perception that it's full of trolls and people are against people and people are putting people down. Actually, I find LinkedIn especially, and Facebook and Instagram, to be safe places where you can put your opinions out there, you can share wonderful ideas that help people, and I'll call it in a safe and trustworthy way.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Although, unfortunately, there are, in fact, only this morning I saw something, a contact of mine on a Facebook group has basically said they are going to leave the group because of some of the disparaging remarks from somebody basically really being totally negative about something they were trying to put a positive spin on.
Okay.
But unfortunately, reading between the lines, because I didn't want to get involved in it, I think it was the other person's misinterpretation of what my contact was trying to put across. But that said, there's still no excuse for basically lambasting somebody on social media. To my mind, that's completely out of order, which probably links beautifully to how COVID has changed the face of business relationships, because I'm sure, Alan, there are people you are now or have been gravitating to that you hadn't previously, and that they're equally people you're pulling away from, who you no longer feel so much in tune with. Tell me your thoughts around that and what's happened in your business relationships, especially online over, well, I suppose it's the last 6 months, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's probably actually longer. I mean, I would say we're probably now looking at 8-9 months.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So well, the psychologists are torn between whether if you do something for 21 days or 42 days, that it changes your behavior. So now we've been doing this for 250 plus days. Whether we all realize it or not, we have been reprogrammed. We've got new myelinated neurons of electrical pathways that have been created in our brains that we don't even realize have been created. Things that our thought patterns have changed, how we see the world, how we see other people. Just moving aside from that slightly, when you're walking down the road now, whereas maybe people used to smile at before and embrace, not physically, but metaphorically, you now sense that people will walk away from people and avoid people because they might breathe on them. So in a way that we don't actually realize, we've been reprogrammed in many, many ways. Now, there have been beliefs created about that on both sides. So I want to go back from your question, which I love. So, I mean, I like looking at cause and effects for everything. So if you think of what's happened, something has triggered changes of behavior in people. And I would say this is as dramatic as going back, if you think 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, when you're in a cave with your partner and your children and your cooking pot, and the bear is running towards your cave and threatening you. So if we see COVID as this, that we're all there in our metaphorical cave, we're all safe with our partner, the cooking pot's going, our concerns are how are we going to feed ourselves, how are we going to keep safe, how are we going to stop anything from happening, how are we going to have a happy life? And all of a sudden, this big bear is running towards you. And then people have had a choice. And if you've noticed, there've been incredibly different reactions. Some people have seen it as the greatest opportunity, fight, and some people have seen it as the greatest fear, the greatest threat, flight, fight or flight, cause effect. Yeah. Very, very simple psychological processes have changed the face of the way we are and how we act and how we behave and how we believe. Now, I'm going to add into that technology, artificial intelligence, algorithms, which I wanted to talk about as well. So when you asked at the beginning what brought us together, whether you and I realize it or not, we have a link deeper down within our minds of how we communicate, and we're using similar language, we're using similar words. The algorithms are very, very clever, and they bring like-minded people together, which I see as a wonderful positive. So in your question, first of all, it's a flight to safety. So what we have all noticed is that we've reconnected with people, and I certainly have, from my NatWest days, from my SG Warburg days, from my HSBC days, loads of people from, because I was there 25 years, from when I was, when I worked at Inc., people from there. And it's been very, very interesting to notice how we've gravitated back towards each other because we felt safe and secure at the time we were together, and we've got back in contact. Now that's led to some very, very interesting conversations, which has led to some very interesting business opportunities. And at the same time, as you said, I've noticed that people maybe, whether we realize consciously or subconsciously, we maybe weren't so close to, we've gravitated away from. And I've noticed that as well. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting here now on, was it the 18th of November, 2020. And if I go back to my life in March compared to now, yes, the absolute fundamentals, my wife, my sons, my mother, my sister, my friends are all the same. And yet this whole new layer of people has been created in business and in personal. And I think that the driving factor for that, when I go back to the cave, is safety, trust, security. And I think what the pandemic has done, it's allowed us to reveal it's allowed us to have access more to our wisdom, to our truth, to what actually really matters in our lives. And I think a lot of the noise and a lot of the fog, that's still there, but it's allowed us to go beneath in our business and personal relationships, to reconnect with people who we feel safer with, who we trust, within the time of such turmoil that's going on around us.
Now, that's really interesting what you're saying there, Alan, because what, being in the career and personal development world as I am, what started to become noticeable to me in the first lockdown was the fact that people were suddenly posting out stuff, and this is, not necessarily people I knew, but I'd see posts on LinkedIn suddenly appearing from random people basically challenging their thinking about the work they were doing and why they were doing it. And, now I've been sitting at home during lockdown, I've had time to think, and, it's made me realize that, what, I really don't enjoy my job. So why am I doing it? Why am I not doing something more meaningful? So I totally get what you're saying. And it's remarkable how that sort of mushroomed out and created the domino effect of conversations all around the globe. And I think that's another interesting aspect you're talking about, and that I completely overlooked when thinking about this interview. The global effect of the pandemic, how it's brought people together through social media much, much more readily than before. Certainly in my case, I've reconnected with contacts in New Zealand, and I've developed a lot of new contacts in Australia, where I have very fond memories of my time there many years ago, and I still have a real affinity. But I'd never really developed many connections in that part of the world, and in the States and Canada and so on. And everything suddenly seems to have come together more so. So I don't quite know how to describe that. You're probably better at describing that than me, Alan.
Yeah, I mean, I concur with everything you're saying. I call it a flight to safety. I think if you look at humans at a deep psychological level, and even going back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs and all of those wonderful concepts, is that if you look at what we're looking for at a deeper level, whether it's safety, comfort, connection, peace, love, all of these different things, food, shelter. And I think what the pandemic has done, I think it's stripped away a lot of the noise and the fog, and people have literally reconnected. I like to call it, I'm very much into understanding self. And I actually think at the core level, people have reconnected with themselves. And what is it? What is their life truly about? What is their purpose? And then I think that they've linked that with business and personal relationships of people who have similar values,
right? Yeah.
And similar beliefs with themselves. And I think that what's then happened is you've created these pseudo communities of like-minded people who are seeking safety, connection, help, support from people who have the same value system and belief system as them. And I think that's then moved into business relationships. So I've created a large number recently of business relationships from that exact medium. And I'm probably 70% of them are people that I have known or worked with before. And the other 30, maybe 20 of people they've recommended me to. And then the other 10 maybe brand new. So I've had a couple recently of people DMing me on LinkedIn. I see what you do. Can you help me? So I do think I like to call it a flight to safety. And, you know, even me talking to you, when I talk to you, there's a connection there. There's a sense there of, I'm always very much speaking about this universal consciousness, as we're all linked with this universal thread. And I definitely think that when you speak to someone, and I speak to a lot of people, you know, there are certain people who you link and bond with, and there are certain people that you can't. But you're not linking at the talking level, you're linking at a level way beneath the surface. It's a deeper feeling and a deeper sense that you get within another human being. And even over Zoom, and I've never met you face to face, it's incredible how you still feel that. And I think that's been another incredible learning from this whole pandemic. And that's the reason why business will, as well as the financial side, another reason why business will move to this platform more is that people have really noticed that actually you can form deep and meaningful relationships over this platform. And you can, by the fact I can see you, I still get a sense of who you are. It's not complete, but I still get a strong sense.
That's really interesting because when pre-lockdown, I started working with a delightful new client, and they were the last client I worked with face to face. They insisted we work face to face. This actually was the day before lockdown, and I thought, well, you know, the young mother, they probably might be a little bit apprehensive, but yeah, I'll go along with that. And we met face to face, and it all went fine. And then ever since then, obviously, we've had to work over Zoom. And there were certain things that I was always a bit unsure of that could be done over Zoom. For instance, I do a very powerful exercise using values cards. And I'm thinking, well, how can I do that over Zoom? I've got an electronic version, which is great, which is good, but it's not as good as coaching somebody and watching them moving the cards around. And then I thought, well, hang on a minute. You got a camera, you got a person on the other end who can talk, you can see them. So there must be a way that the person can do the exercise with the camera positioned so you can actually see them moving the cards, as long as you coach them through the process and explain it. So I tested out my wife first of all, and it worked brilliantly well. And I thought, wow, this is incredible. Limiting belief. I've always had this limiting belief that you could not do that exercise over Zoom. Obviously, you have to send them the cards in the first place so that they got them, but that's fine. So ever since then, I've now encouraged my clients when we're doing the values exercise, I give them the option. So you can either work through the online one and we can do that together. But if you really want the biggest impact, we do it with the cards and I'll coach you through that and I'll watch you do it. And then I can challenge you on some of your decisions, which is much harder to do on the electronic one. But I was talking to somebody the other day on this point about energy and whether you can get the same energy from communicating with people like we are now over Zoom, as opposed to being in the room with them and feeling that energy, that vibration, if you like. And again, I've always been of the view, well, you can get it to a degree, but I think the technology's vastly improved from, you know, what we had a number of years ago in the old Skype days, where you see a grainy face of somebody and it wouldn't necessarily be that good. So what are your thoughts around that now, Alan? Do you feel you can get the same amount of feeling of energy from the person, or similar, or?
I would say I've been surprised at what you can achieve. I do some quite deep subconscious work with my coaching. One of the things I do is I do chair work, where I get people's different parts of their subconscious mind to speak to each other. And a couple of weeks ago, I've actually done this twice now, I asked the person who I was coaching if they had another chair where they were, because then I was going to position them and they were going to effectively have a conversation with a different part of themselves on the empty chair. They didn't have another chair. So I got up from where I was, and so my chair was empty, and we disassociated from our original position, and we actually did that over Zoom. Now, I was flabbergasted at how well it went, surprised. And when it came to energy, it was very, very interesting. I'm not saying that it was absolutely exactly the same. What I'm saying is I still got a fantastic result from that. And I've actually done that since, and it worked probably even better the second time when I did a few other tweaks.
Yeah.
It's really interesting what you're saying. For me, when you're with someone face to face, it is, as you know, it's not anything that's said. There's this underlying sense, energy, vibration, something that's going on that you even, the first 7 to 10 seconds you meet someone, you've already decided there's 130,000 plus different things going on inside of you, both of you, and you have already made a decision in that first period of time whether you like that person, you trust them, and you want to do business with them. You have. Now, the utopia, the panacea will be, imagine you can then do that over this. Now, you and I have spoken a couple of times, and it is true. You do get a sense very, very quickly. I don't know how, but you do. The fact that I can see you nodding, I can see your face, I can see what you're wearing. I still get a feeling about you. I may not get 100%, but even if I get 80, my gut instinct and my intuition will lead me to the other 20. And I think that, as well as the financial implications, will be the deciding factor whether global businesses decide that this is the way forward. If it was totally not human and you couldn't do that, I mean, you and I coach over Zoom, and I'm doing all of my training over Zoom, and it's brilliant. So something has to be working. So I think, as well as the money sides of it, I think companies will have seen now that this actually does work. And I think it's brought forward the increase of artificial intelligence, of technology, by 10, 15 years. And I think it will lead eventually to a whole change in the way we act, we behave, we believe, we think about business, for both those reasons.
Yeah, that's interesting. And obviously, something we can touch on now quickly, Alan, is interviews. Because in the COVID era, most interviews that people have been having have been over Zoom or similar technology, either with a human like we are now, or sometimes the other version, which I absolutely detest, where it's a pre-recorded interview where you're sent a link and you're already given a number of questions and you have to speak to or you create your own video response to it, which personally I hate because I think it's so unnatural, because like you're nodding now, you can't see anybody responding, so you don't know whether you're on the right wavelength or whether you're way off track. So how do you see that all progressing? Do you think that's going to become the norm now?
I think for me, if I say put interviews, I'll add interviews to it. I think all of this is, for me, is the deeper question: can you build trust? on this platform, can you get that deeper sense of connection and trust, i.e., would it be a platform that you're happy to sign off a $1 billion deal, $1 million deal, whatever you might be doing, or a £1,000 deal? And are you happy to make a decision on the back of this platform? So I can tell you, and it's probably exactly the same for you, over the past number of months, I've had a large number of people who've met me on this platform and made a decision that they're very happy to start a business relationship with me. So absolutely, definitely, people are making decisions. And I think that this is actually a wonderful opportunity for people to develop those skills. You've actually given me another idea. Just something that's just
it always happens.
You've actually just given,
isn't it?
You've actually just given me, as I was saying it, the light bulb is actually there. There it is there. You actually have just given me another idea. So what we need to do is actually, if you think about it, to develop those skills even more of sense, of gut, of intuition. Because let's just say I never meet you, and I've got 4 sessions today, 4 calls today, and I speak to these people often. I've never met them face to face, and we're now like the best of friends in the world. So how is that? How is that even possible?
Yeah.
So I think for humanity to survive, and if you think about what differentiates us from machines, it's that sense, it's that feeling, it's that gut instinct, it's that inner wisdom that we use to make a decision whether we trust someone enough that we want to have a relationship with them, do business with them, and there's an exchange of money. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. But you give me an idea now. I have to tell you, I need to write that down, otherwise I'm going to forget it. Otherwise, yeah. Okay, it's there.
I'm not going to ask you what it is at the moment. You can come back. No, this is great. I mean, again, it proves the point that by having these conversations, and maybe it's to do also with the art of questioning, which is another topic in itself, that you can trigger thinking in people that will ignite positive ideas, which is fantastic. So I think maybe that's a great place to finish, because that's a hugely positive ending, isn't it? And as always, an absolute pleasure talking with you, Alan. And I do hope that many people will be seeing this video recording and can sense the wisdom that's been created within it. So thanks very much again, and good luck with everything that you're doing, and in the future with your new wisdom gained from today.
Thank you. I enjoyed every nanosecond of that, Steve. I loved the whole feeling of the questions, what we were asking, having a really uplifting conversation. And thank you so much indeed for that, and everything that you do in the future as well.
Yeah, thank you.